What if I told you that there were more murders, robberies, stabbings, gambling, prostitution, drinking, drugs in this spot anywhere else in Nevada? Where is this epically awesome yet scarily amazing place, you ask? Well, it's right here at Derby Dam.
If there was ever a true, lawless, Wild West town, it would have been Derby, Nevada. The little company town that had been built to house the workers of the Derby Dam project had in 2 short years become the murder capital of Nevada. With its 52 robberies, 27 stabbings, and 38 unsolved murders. Derby didn't start out this way. In fact, in the beginning, there was much promise. It was the company town for the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation's very first project. For a while now, the United States had been looking for ways to make a buck off of uninhabitable land. And no one has more government-owned uninhabitable land than Nevada. So the decision to divert water from the Truckee River to what would become Lahontan Reservoir at first seemed like a no-brainer.
100,000 square miles of challenge. This is the state of Nevada. Yet here in the state of least water is successful agriculture. The few people in Nevada are creating in our United States a new frontier of opportunity with a chain of reclamation dams to store water for rainless days, lease as needed to the 80,000 acres now under cultivation in Churchill County in the Newlands Reclamation Project, irrigation canals, sluice gates. Across the rugged face of the land move the products of their labors in growing volume. People to bring more water to more land. People for greater production of minerals. People to match the land in which they would live. Men and their women and children. People to build on the achievements of the past. To accept the challenge of the still untouched natural resources of Nevada.
This was a large and ambitious project that required a large force of men, 1,000 to be exact. And when you have a job that pays $2.50 for a short 8-hour day, well, needless to say, men were flocking to the remote area for the opportunity. Dam building men, saloon men, gambling men, and all the migrant workers, transients, and drifters a rough little town by the Truckee could want. And these men enjoyed spending their nights drinking, gambling, and whoring in the many saloons and houses of ill repute that sprang up around the project. And due to the remote location and the fact that it was settled on both sides of the Truckee River, a jurisdiction problem surfaced, as half of Derby was in Story County and half was in Washoe County. This caused neither sheriff to venture out to the remote location. Completely void of any law enforcement, this created a big red beacon, which attracted every gambler, crook, thief, highwayman, con artist, and murderer.
Our story begins not with a movie, but in real life, of men who take the law into their own hands. Gamblers, racketeers, and hired killers. The vast network of bootlegging, gambling, protection, and vice. Proudly in public. Who doesn't have to run from the law because he is the law. Violence, however, leads to violence. And what will eventually separate the men from the boys are not fists, but gunplay, machine-gunned in broad daylight. slain by their own kind. After all, it's just one gangster killing another.
If Derby sounded like a bad place, well, it was. Instead of sending in reinforcements, each jurisdiction would simply send out their coroner once a week to collect the dead bodies and take them back to either Virginia City or Wadsworth for burial. This caused the townspeople of Wadsworth to go to war over the town of Derby. They felt that they could no longer stand by while their cemetery kept filling up with the bodies of men who had met their end at Derby violence.
You can actually feel the energy change when you walk through this portion of what was Derby. We were walking through what was the downtown area. What we're doing right now is we're walking down what was Saloon Row. Now, this is where the majority of the murders and all of the mayhem took place. The only thing left of this once notorious row is the empty spots of where the saloons once stood. Behind me over here, we have what was nothing but saloons on this side of the street and saloons on this side of the street. The only buildings that were there to break up the saloons were the mini brothels that were up and down here.
And a plea had been made to Washoe County to send in the sheriff. Washoe County responded by saying they simply could not afford the enormous tax expense that it would cost in investigations, justice and court trials, in support of the jail, and the expansive police system that it would require to go into Derby to clean it up. Not willing to let this go, the townspeople of Wadsworth took it all the way to the grand jury, who demanded the sheriff go to Derby and pull the liquor licenses of every saloon in an effort to stop the violence. So on August 4th, 1904, Sheriff Hayes of Washoe County, along with Sheriff Quirk of Story County, and the heavily armed constables Reagan and Golding, Deputy Constables Port and Brooks, Justice Bridges, and the U.S. Marshal went into Derby to serve official notice that the saloons of sin had 30 days to shut down. Convinced that the Derby violence would stop and pleased with themselves, the townspeople of Wadsworth simply went back to their normal lives. This government shutdown seemingly worked for Derby, as all remained quiet for about 2 months. That is until October 19th, 1904 at 6:30 p.m., when a large blast shook the entire town, and a bloodied frenzy of men came running out the door of the San Francisco Company Saloon. Someone had just dynamited the bar. No, you heard that right. Someone blew up the saloon. And the question on everybody's mind wasn't who would blow up the saloon, but why was there a saloon open to begin with? The answer to that lies with the sheriff. After the shutdown, the San Francisco Company went to Virginia City and simply applied for a new liquor license. And it was granted by the sheriff, who felt it was unconstitutional to deny any man who wants to go into business for himself a license to do so. This caused a lot of problems for the Story County Sheriff, who not only now had to defend his decision, but had to somehow catch the dynamiter in a town full of thugs. Luckily, the sheriff quickly caught a break. Turns out, when Mr. William Neary, aka Bill King, had gotten into a fight and was kicked out of the saloon. On his way out, the entire bar heard him swear that he would have revenge by morning. Then 5 witnesses watched as he walked straight over to the powder house, purchased 5 or 6 sticks of dynamite, walked over to the saloon, lit the fuse, and walked away as it blew up. This incident garnered national headlines, especially as William Neary ended up being found not guilty. The jury came to the conclusion that not one of any person that lives in Derby is of reputable character, so none of their testimonies could be trusted. And other than the eyewitness accounts, there just wasn't enough evidence to convict him, and Neary walked away a free man.
The town of Derby's murderous ways came to an abrupt end in 1905 with the completion of the Derby Dam project. And the majority of the workers moved on down the line, heading to work at the other projects that were further down the Truckee and on the Carson River. But the government learned something from Derby. They learned that men love to drink, gamble, and murder each other. So what they did is all of the subsequent towns became dry towns. They did not want to have a repeat of what happened here happen again. Derby no longer has nightly shootouts, daily stabbings, bodies thrown into the Truckee River, and the lawless nature is all but gone. What's left is a beautiful area next to the Truckee River. It's some sensational stories of what was once the last true Wild West town.
Oh, since the day that I was born, the foe made me shiver, and often made me so forlorn. Down by the riverside, we'll end this war. Down by the river, we'll end this war. Down by the riverside.
Hey, Jerry, did you know that this town, this road we're on right now, was full of nothing but saloons, gambling houses, prostitution houses, and just badness everywhere? My kind of town, too. So this town right here, this lawless town, do you want to, should we move here and should we start a derby ride again? Should we get derby going? That sounds like fun. Can you get me up in that tree? I want to sit right there.